you're up, Harold.
You're up.
I was trying not to bore you. But I got a long story, but I'm not going to be here all night. But how this all started, Gary and Laura had the Marine Theater in Marine City. So I got to know them, and the place where we used to meet sold. So Gary said, why don't you meet at my place? So we meet at his place the first Wednesday every month at 9:30. Laura and them, they have the coffee ready, the donuts, and we hash out everything. When we first started this, a lot of people thought, what are those guys all doing in there? Are they plotting against the city? Because we'd go in, we'd come out. And the next thing they said, they must be selling dope in there. But anyhow, Gary would sit in on our meetings. He's a very talented man. And you had to get to know him to appreciate him. So he kept talking about Iwo Jima. And he was putting Iwo Jima together. So the months went by. One of the fellows says, Harold, he was there at Iwo Jima. Well, then he really took off. So after that, he got this thing all done. The gentleman here, they decided to put this movie on, and the first they showed was hand sketched by a fellow that was there. Instead of a movie, it was sketched. So Gary says, Harold, he says, we're going to have a show. Not me. So I dug up everything I could find. The only thing that saved me, 7 years ago I put the stuff away. Forgot about it. The family knew I was in the war, but I never talked about it. So I finally got all these boxes out. And I knew I had a diary. I kept them the day I went in to the day I came out. I looked and looked, couldn't find it. The day before we were going to have the show, it was right in front of me all the time, which helped me to go back on dates. So we had the first, wait a minute, I'm not looking. Oh, I'm not looking there.
You're good.
Am I going too fast?
Nope, you're good.
So we had the first show, and I didn't want to go through with it because at my age, so Gary said, no, there's nothing you can't do. We're doing it. So he put the one on at the theater in Marine City. And I was a nervous wreck because I was reliving what I went through 70 years ago. So I'm rambling on, Gary's putting the stuff on the screen and I'm way ahead of him. So finally he shut the screen off. And I just kept rambling on, rambling on. So we got through that one. See, my family never knew. They knew it was in the war, but I never talked about it. They didn't know what I went through. So that night, we got this one over. So Gary called, I don't know, it was 9, 10 o'clock. He said, Harold, there's supposed to be one show. He said, can we have one tomorrow night? He was getting so many calls. Can we have one at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon? I said, Gary, this is not my cup of tea. Okay. A little while later, he called me back, and we have another one at 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. So we ended up having 3. So then after that, we ended up at the college here as a history class, right? About a year ago now. So after that, I met, in this whole thing, I met so many nice people and new friends I didn't realize. But and I got so many, after I was up here, I got so many nice letters from the parents of the kids that were here, the students. And the one really was outstanding. This lady wrote me this nice letter. And she says, Harold, I don't know what you did to my daughter. all she does is talk about Iwo Jima and everything else. And she said, you know, Mother, he even signed an autograph for me. That made me feel good. I knew one part, but I got a lot of repeats on it. So, we're supposed to move on? Okay. I joined I enlisted in the Navy when I was 17 years old. My mother died when I was 14. My dad was still 5 at home. We tried to keep things going, but it just didn't work out. So I went to live with a sister. And then my dad, we were in a farm, so he sold the farm, and he went to try to work for his brother. So I said, Dad, I want to go in the Navy. I don't think so. I said, yeah, because he had a sign for me. So finally he gave in. So I got sworn in Detroit, then I went to Great Lakes for my boot camp. And from Great Lakes, I was sent to Florida to be a gunner instructor in the Air Force. So I get down there, and I thought, this isn't for me. I joined the Navy to see the world. I'm not going to see the world here. So it came up on the bulletin board. They needed gunner mate in the amphibious corps. I didn't know what the amphibious corps was. I found out. So finally, my commanding officer said, Harold, no. What was nice down there, he lived there. We go fishing our day off. He said, no, you stay here. You'll be here through the war. I said, no, I joined the Navy to see the world. So finally, I got my orders to go to DeLand, Florida, as a gun instructor. They're going to teach me to be one. And this is when I was, I didn't want this. So it came on the board. I had to go to California. So they put me on a troop train. Half the time you didn't have any water, you didn't have this, you couldn't go to the bathroom. Back in those days, dust, you couldn't even stand it. So I back up one time. I wanted to have a leave from DeLand, because I was coming to Chicago, then to California. They said, no, you can't have a leave, because they need you to run away. So I get to California, Oakland, I check in, and they said, well, okay, tomorrow we'll get you set up, we'll give me a bunk number, and I went so the next morning I come. Up there, they said, well, we're going to see if you had a right arm break, you automatically went to shore patrol. And he said, we're going to put you in the shore patrol. I'm supposed to go aboard a ship. Oh, your ship isn't built yet. I said, I wanted to go on a vacation. They told me no, because I had to get there. The ship's waiting for me. I was there 3 months. Finally, the ship was built in North Carolina. It came up, and that's when we got on it. So when I got my order to report to it, I walked down the dock. I'm looking for a big battleship. Destroyer. I looked at it, LSM 145. That can't be it. Here's 206 feet long, flat bottom. So I report to the officer at the deck. He takes me down below. You eat, you sleep, all in the same room. I thought, what did I get into here? So 3 days later, we left for Pearl Harbor. I'll never forget, I always got seasick. I sailed on the lakes for 3 months. Every time the ship, I was sick. I watched the Golden Gate Bridge fade away. The ship started doing this. I was sick all the way to Pearl Harbor. But you had to stand take your turn. And what was bad at night, you sleep, all these diesel fuels and everything else, that didn't help your sickness any. But it's funny, as soon as you're in Pearl Harbor, it's quiet, I felt good. So, when we got there, we got one liberty we could go on. So then I mixed up with the fourth Marine tank. We did all our training on Maui. We went through, we never knew where we were going. We went through all the exercise, just like we were going on the beach. So finally, we get our orders to leave. We didn't know where we're going. We're in a convoy, traveling about 6-7 knots across the ocean. And at night, there's no lights, everything was that way, because the enemy might blow us up. 37 days later, once in a while they say, there's an island over there. That's all you ever see. 37 days later, we arrived at Guam. So then we were there, they fueled us up, we got food, and we were there 3 days, but we couldn't go ashore. So we took off. Still didn't know where we were going. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, the captain called us down in his quarters, showed us where we're going, Iwo Jima. We didn't know anything about Iwo Jima. He had all the way out, he said, now, you'll be there 3 days. Well, that didn't sound too bad. He said, we've dropped bombs on Iwo Jima for 97 days before we got there. The island, like he said, is 3 by 7. So he showed us where we're going to hit the beach, what time, everything else. Well, it started getting daylight. You could see these battleships pounding the island. We were in the first wave was the Marine infantry. They went in first at 9 o'clock on February the 19th. We followed at 9:15 with the tanks. When we hit the beach, our men were already piled deep. When we dropped our ramp to unload, you're running right over the men. And this one fellow, I'll never forget, he tried to get back on the ship. They will get back up when our men were using our own men for foxholes. We couldn't get off the beach. So then it went on, and this one fellow walked, he wanted to get on the ship. Well, the officer stood there with his gun, because there had been mutinies and he couldn't let on. I'll never forget, he turned around to walk back out, he was dead. What happened, everything was underground, hospitals, everything. And as we brought people in, they just kept mowing them down. Finally, we got a foothold. So instead of us being there 3 days, it took us 27 days to secure the island. See, the Marines would go across the island. Then the Army would come in for what they call cleanups, to secure all these things. But these guns were mounted on the side of these hills. The big steel doors. Now, on each side, they had a machine gun nest. We always called them the suicide guys. We had these, they had portable welders on our back. Sometimes to get one guy, or one door, welded shut, it would cost us 100 men. Because it had to go over this hill to the next hill. The object was that door, gun come out and fired. It went back in, the doors closed. It was up to them to weld it so they couldn't open it up again. And our job was after that was to, we'd take the wounded out. And at first we couldn't, they couldn't get any place to bury them on the land. So you'd have a well deck full of, some guys got tubes all over them, some are dead. We'd take them out to the hospital ship. Then a lot of them were buried at sea. We'd take them to a transport ship. And they'd wrap you up in your hammock put weight in you. They had the American flag over the top of these areas in the ocean, till we could get a hold. Then we finally got a foothold. They took a bulldozer, just dug the trenches. So we're in the ground, put a stake there. And that's how we had a burial. We had no place to go with the bodies. But whatever we thought of, I don't know. How we didn't know more how that island was fortified. To lose that many men, and we were supposed to spend 3 days. See, our job was, we had another, if it wouldn't have been that we had this extra men that were going to open Island next, they kept bringing them ashore. If it wouldn't have been for those extra men, we would never taken that island. So we got shot up pretty bad. So after the 27 days, they sent us to Pearl Harbor to be repaired. They put patches on us, on the ship. We get to Pearl Harbor, they had so many ships in there, they couldn't take us. Gotta go back to California. So we went all the way back to California. And they put us in a dry dock there in Napa, California. We were there 47 days. Can't you imagine going across that ocean so many times at 7 knots? Now we're headed back the same route. We were, right then, we were headed for Japan. And just before we got there, that's when they dropped the bomb. So our job on the way back was, like he was telling us before the semester, we had so many islands, we bypassed them. Every once in a while we'd drop a bomb on them. We didn't need them. Our job was to stop these different islands on the way back. And I think I don't know if we have some pictures. Or am I getting ahead of myself?
You're good.
But these Japs, they didn't know the war ended. But you never seen anybody so glad to see you in your life. I got different pictures of them taken with them, you know. The guy said, you let them alongside you? Well, it didn't bother me. They didn't have a gun, I had one. But,
You want to talk about the
that's
diary?
my diary. That's what I'm talking about?
No.
So then we came back, I got real sick. We were headed back to Pearl Harbor. And this is a little gruesome, what I'm gonna tell you. So I kept getting worse. But they tried to get me on a hospital ship, but it was too rough. So we had a farmer's meet on our ship. So the doctor on the hospital ship, he said, well, we better operate, because I was bleeding all over, out of my mouth, my nose, everything. So he gives the farmer's mate instructions what to do. They took the officer's mess table and made an operating table out of it. The doctor talked to him, tell him what to do. Well, what happened? They thought I had intestinal obstruction. So when he gave me the spinal, he didn't give it to me. It didn't last long enough. So all of a sudden I started to move. Everything went back inside of me. Stowed me up. I had the worst looking scar in your life. So then when I get to Pearl Harbor, they took me to the hospital. Every doctor looked at, oh, you got adhesions. We'll send you on to California. Well, I get to California, same thing. You got adhesions. I said, look, I'm getting these spells. There's something wrong. No, it's adhesion. We can operate on it. You're not. So I took a leave. I came home. And when I got home, it was on Easter Sunday. I'll never forget it. I got one of these spells. It didn't go away. Well, the next thing I know, I'm flying off the highway to the ambulance. Well, back in those days, in Mount Clemens, they had the old General Hospital. It was like a big old house made into a hospital. When I get there, they got no room for me. So they had to put me in the maternity ward. I wasn't in with the women. So, all night, one's having babies, one's having this, and they kept giving me these shots. Well, what happened? They had no elevators, and my brother-in-law and my brother, my brother worked for the ambulance in Marine City, and my brother-in-law, they had to get me up the stairs. Well, now, all during the night, they kept checking me this, giving me shots. So about 5 o'clock in the morning, the guy came in and he said, get up. Well, I'm kind of paralyzed. Because well, what's the trouble with? They had to get me downstairs to get me to the operating room. So finally, they got 3, 4 guys. They got me downstairs and put me. That's the last thing I knew for 11 days. And the Lord must have been looking after me, because what happened when they cut me open downstairs, they give me so much penicillin when I was operating aboard ship. I had a tumor. It kept growing. And when they cut me open, it bursted. And that's the last I knew. But you know, when I went in there, I was still conscious. There was a funeral home out the window there. And you can talk about Freeman. When I was out, I was going through that funeral home being buried. 11 days later, I started coming around. So, got through that part. So then after that, I got out of the area. But what really made me laugh, I had to go to Highland Park. And that was a filthy VA hospital. I had to go down there for all my treatments. And that was another filthy. I never seen anything like it. So I guess that's the end of my long career here. Well, that's in our well deck. See, our ship, on our ship we only had 50 caliber and 20 millimeters. Now this is on Wake Island. There's 2 of the jets standing with us there. And this is in Hawaii. See, Hawaii never, Pearl Harbor never, when we were there, it was still kind of a mess yet. And this is my son, Robert. He was killed in Vietnam. And my brother Bill, he was a captain in the Navy, and he stayed in the reserve and retired from there.
Get the box.
I want to thank everybody for being patient with me. You know, my age, it's not my cup of tea.
Hold on, Harold.
I forgot one thing. Laura, and Gary. We lost Gary. We still meet at the place. She gave us another lease. Now, she's trying to help me follow up what Gary started, because he was a different person altogether. You had to know him. There's no such thing you can't do. And you live for the day, one day at a time. But you had to know this man. He was outstanding. I learned a lot. At my age, I learned a lot.
Thank you, Harold.
Just wanted to say something. When I met with Harold over the weekend, he pulled this out of the box and asked that when he was done speaking, if I would push the button, and if everybody would like to stand, clap, or we'll set it right here for everyone to see it. Harold asked that we play this.
God bless America!
I'll set this down here.